Here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 493.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Lake Burton, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 14th of October, 2021.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture ride and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a Ukrainian freighter goes down short of the runway after running out of fuel. A scrap 747 gets stuck under an overpass while being driven down a highway. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, the Mike Wildman story, part 2. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in the upright and lock positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 493 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia. And joining me today from her lakeside studio in South, a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, multi-marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument rated backstabbing jumper dumper, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. So great to see you guys. Really looking forward to this evening's show. Lots of good stuff to talk about, I think.
Yeah, mostly your stuff.
Well,
but that's always the most interesting, isn't it?
No, definitely not.
Also joining us from across the pond, a professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. I would like to formally give my time to the lady in the top right corner because she's going to need it tonight.
I just noticed how excited he was to start talking over the pause in the
I was hoping. So I usually leave a pause between when I say his name and for that part of his little thing. And I'm thinking maybe I can just say his name and then right after. But no, he blew it. He ruined it. Of course, he did that on purpose.
I blew it. I did it perfectly.
I know. Well, in your mind. Okay. Well, that's all right. We have other opportunities in the future. And
no.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about some aviation news. What do you think?
That sounds good.
Do we have to?
Yes.
Stand by for news.
All right. A Russian plane carrying parachutists crashes, 16 killed. And this is from Reuters. Moscow. A plane carrying a group of parachute jumpers crashed after takeoff in the Russian region of Tatarstan early on Sunday, killing 16 people, injuring 6, the emergencies ministry said. At a height of 70 meters, the pilots reported that their left engine had failed and attempted an emergency landing near the city of Menzelinsk, trying to turn the plane leftward to avoid an inhabited area, the regional governor said. But the aircraft's wing hit a Gazelle vehicle as the plane landed, and it overturned. Tatarstan's governor, Rustam Minakhanov, said the aircraft had been carrying 20 parachutists and 2 crew members. I thought it said 16. Oh, but 16 were 16
6
died.
injured. Yeah.
Okay. 6 people were in serious condition. The LET L410 turbojet twin-engine short-range transport aircraft was owned by an Aero Club in the city of Menzelinsk. The Aero Club declined to comment, citing a law enforcement investigation into the incident. And if you're watching the video, you'll see a couple of the photos of the crash scene and the wreckage. cosmonauts use that area for training, and the Aero Club has hosted local European championships and one world championship. The club's director, I'm not going to say his name, according to TASS. The investigative committee, which probes serious crimes, said it had opened a criminal investigation into a suspected violation of safety regulations. The state-run Cosmonaut Training Center has suspended its ties with the Aero Club pending an investigation. Photographs of some of the parachutists on board posing in kit or with a plane were circulated on the REN TV channel and on social media. Russian aviation safety standards have been tightened in recent years, but accidents continue to happen, particularly in remote regions, according to Reuters.
Yeah, they just had the skydiving world championship somewhere in Russia, in like Siberia. I'm not sure if it was the same location or not.
Interesting what they said about the safety regulations perhaps being violated. I wonder, hopefully we'll hear more.
Yeah,
understand what's going on.
I'm hoping that's just a formality that because they're
they have
going to
to
do a possible criminal investigation. But I hope and pray that they weren't doing something dodgy because, you know.
I mean, it doesn't
Not
sound
good.
like it just from the limited information we have. They had a mechanical issue and they were trying to get back somewhere and put it down safely and trying to stay away from inhabited areas, at least.
Yep.
And this continues to beg the question, for me at least, if you have an airplane, I know airliners, Part 121 scheduled air carriers are certified so that they can fly even with only one engine or one engine out. In this case, only one engine left, and even with a full load. I'm wondering, do they have the same standards for this kind of category or class of aircraft or not? I mean, why would they not be able to continue to fly?
It should.
Maybe that was a safety violation.
I don't know the nature of the emergency or what they were. It sounds like they were just trying to perform a landing. I don't know where they were trying to land.
I think that
Like an off landing somewhere in a field.
Oh, okay.
or
Well, I think that
I have no idea.
They were just taking off, it says.
Well, they were 70 meters above the ground, and they,
Yeah. That's when they reported their left engine had failed, but it said crashed after takeoff on.
but it hit a vehicle, so they weren't particularly high off the ground.
Well, I guess shortly after they took off, they lost the engine, and then
Yeah.
they came down. They didn't have enough altitude to return to the airport.
I don't know. That's
That's
the part
why
where I'm not. That's
again-
the part where I'm unsure exactly what happened here.
I'm scratching my head, thinking that that's what we practice, right, Nick? In the simulator,
absolutely,
we lose an
yes.
engine and we are successful. That's
There's no good reason why you shouldn't. They haven't got exactly a big, weight of passengers. There could be no cargo. There's a bunch of parachutists with their hand luggage, their parachutes. So they should have been able to
fancy
successfully
backpacks.
climb away, sort themselves out, and then bring the aircraft back for a single engine landing. Unless there's some other problem. So I'm with you,
No,
Jeff.
I agree with Nick. This should have been something where they should have continued to, as long as it was just the one engine failure and everything else was working fine.
Yeah.
or perhaps they were overloaded, and that might be the safety issue that the articles
know.
refer
It's
to.
a reasonable
The
sized
L410
aircraft.
Yeah, the L410 turbolet. I know they use
Well-
those for jump operations. This is not a light twin, though. So David Ogden says, in light twins, the second engine takes you to the crash site. A light twin is like personal use, small, multi-engine aircraft. This is...
Yeah.
So there were 22 people on board,
Yeah, it's not
including
a
their
light twin.
parachutes. I don't know. Is that
I don't know the...
reasonable for this type of airplane? We don't know. Not very
yeah,
familiar
that sounds...
with the airplane.
If it's anything like if it's similar size to a Twin Otter, then sure.
Yeah. And with a Twin Otter, if you had that kind of a load and you lost an engine, you'd still be able to fly the thing, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we'll hear more, and all those questions that we have will be answered. In the meantime, another sad accident in the San Diego area. At least 2 die in a California plane crash near Santee, which is again on the outskirts of San Diego. And I'll just give you a brief setup here before we play the audio from liveatc.net. A doctor, Dr. Sugata Das, died when he was piloting a Cessna 340, attempting a landing of an instrument approach to a circling approach in San Diego because of the weather. And he was commuting. I guess he lived in the San Diego area, and he commuted to Yuma, Arizona, the Yuma Regional Medical Center. And I guess he was returning home. And I guess he did this quite often. And this is what happened. So let's go ahead and play this audio for you. There we go.
Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 250, join final.
250, join final for 22 Golf. And 22 Golf, do you say clear for the ILS to it, right?
Raider 47, turn left heading 180, join final.
Left side 180, join final, right to 47.
Air 22 Golf, you're 4 miles from Penny, descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer. Clear to ILS, runway 28 right, circle the land, runway 23.
Clear for the ILS to it, right? For runway 23 to the Golf.
Yes, sir. Descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer.
2,800 till established on the localizer to the Golf.
Kind of talked over the controller
Raider
there.
47, descend and maintain 4,000.
Descend and maintain 4,000, right to 47.
Air 22 Golf, traffic 2 o'clock, 3 miles southbound, 5,000 descending, 4,000 to C-130. They are restricted above you. Caution, right turbulence.
Copy to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, looks like you're drifting right of course. Are you correcting?
Correcting for to the Golf. So, to the Golf, clear for runway 23.
22 Golf, you're not even tracking the localizer. I need you to fly. Actually, cancel approach clearance, climb and maintain 3,000. 22 Golf.
3,000 to the Golf.
Maintain 3,000. Low altitude alert, minimum vectoring altitude in your area, 2,800.
Climbing to Golf.
Raider 47, you're over hill, cleared VOR or tack and alpha approach to Brown.
Say VOR, taking alpha approach to Brown, Raider 47.
Air 22 Golf, climb and maintain 3,800.
3,800, good.
Raider 47, contact Brown Tower 128.25.
Tower 128.25, Raider 47, thanks, good night.
Good day. Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 090, re-vectors to final.
090 to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 090, climb immediately, maintain 4,000.
1,000 climbing immediately to the Golf.
Okay, it looks like you're descending, sir. I need to make sure you are climbing, not descending.
Golf is climbing.
Air 22 Golf, say altitude.
2,500 to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, low altitude alert. Climb immediately. Climb the airplane, maintain 5,000. Expedite climb. Climb the airplane, please. Air 22 Golf, just level out the plane, or the heading, and climb the airplane up to 5,000 when you can, sir. 10 o'clock and a half mile, 1,500. You appear to be descending again, sir. Are you, say altitude? Altimeter is currently 2978.
Copter 129 traffic ahead half a mile eastbound.
Tower, an aircraft just crashed about a half mile in front of us into the houses.
Helicopter 129 turn eastbound.
Turning east.
Princess 7022 Golf, SoCal approach.
Okay, that's enough. Interesting. I don't know what that sound is. Do you still hear that typing noise, Steph?
It's Nick typing.
Oh, okay. Well, but he had his microphone muted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, I could
But
totally hear typing. I assumed it was Nick because I kept getting text messages from him.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, it's not Liz. Weird.
Yeah.
Fandom,
No,
fandom typing.
Keyboard.
I can hear Liz, but I would be the only one that could hear
Yeah.
Liz.
I don't think it's Liz.
Well, I don't know how you would say something, Liz. Can they hear you?
No.
No, they can't hear her. That's very odd. I'm sorry, folks. We have a little technical thing going on. Steph and I hear some noises. It sounds like somebody typing, And
Maybe, was it in the audio? I don't recall it being, I don't know if it was in the audio from before or not. I don't remember. I did do my homework, by the way.
I don't think so. I don't remember hearing it in the audio either. Anyway,
I
whatever.
was typing, but then I muted. So
Yeah.
if it
Okay.
carried on, then it definitely wasn't me.
Yeah, well, I can't
Yeah.
tell for sure because I'm still listening to Liz in my control room communications, and I hear some things going on there, but that's normal. Yeah. Oh, that's your dog. Your dog is
Your
typing?
dog's typing?
That's a very, very smart dog.
Yeah, well, now we know how
Precocious.
producer Liz is so smart. It's the dog doing it all.
Okay. Back into the news item. Okay, so there you go. The ATC audio of Dr. Das coming in his Cessna 340 and kind of botching up his instrument approach. Sounded a little bit confused to me when told, I guess, he was going to be landing on 2-3, but flying the approach to 2-8 right, an instrument approach, which is not unusual if the weather conditions are such where you have to track something, some type of an approach to get below the clouds, and then you can do a visual maneuver to realign your aircraft with the landing runway. And it sounds to me when he read that back, when he queried about, okay, ILS 28 right, and then he said circle to land 2-3, and then he didn't even use the words in the readback, circle to land. So it sounded like he was a little confused by what he was actually supposed to be doing. And then, of course, the issue that he had with intercepting the localizer. It looks like he was just a little bit north of the localizer, came down to intercept it, and then maybe turned a little bit too much and didn't quite intercept it and got to the right, of course, again, and didn't look like he was correcting, even though the air traffic controller was doing his best to get him steered in the right direction to track the localizer. And then finally, I guess the controller realized that this wasn't going to happen, and for him to go ahead and go around and climb. And just Liz, can you show the first overlay? Yeah, they're his FlightAware track from Yuma to the San Diego area. And then the next one, if you don't mind, is the altitude speed graph from FlightAware based on ADS-B data. And everything looks all nice and just really nice and smooth for the initial portion of the flight and the cruise portion of the flight, and then the initial descent as well. And it wasn't until he got down close to the intended airport of landing when I believe when he was off the localizer and was trying to get it corrected, maybe he didn't set up the autopilot correctly for the approach. Whatever, it looks to us like he had started to hand fly the aircraft, and that's when everything started going a little wonky as far as the speed, especially. The speed goes anywhere from 150, then up to 220, 230 miles per hour, and then drops back down to below 100 miles per hour, and then back up again to almost 200, well, eventually 250 or more miles per hour in the spiral descent and subsequent crash. So looks, I don't know, what do you all think about the possibility that this may have been due to that somnographic illusion that we've talked about before on the show, where if you're in instrument conditions and you get a big acceleration from your engines, and it feels like that acceleration your brain thinks is like a major climbing thing, but you're not really, and your natural human reaction is to do your controls in the opposite direction to stop that really, really rapid climb. And the controller seemed to be saying, you're supposed to be climbing. And he even said, I'm climbing, but he wasn't, clearly, based on the data. What do you think about this stuff?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, actually, and I did think think Jeff or someone in our private chat had shared the Blanco Lirio analysis of this as well, and I did get to listen to it on the way home, so I did my homework.
Okay, great.
Which was actually very useful because he goes into a little bit more detail than we have just from the VAS aviation. It's nice to hear the ATC side of things. But this is a guy who's a cardiologist and, like you said, working in the Yuma area, but apparently living in the San Diego area. Sounds like this was his commute. I'm not sure there's a lot of doctors who kind of work several days on, several days off, or 1 or 2 weeks on and 1 or 2 weeks off. If they're hospitalist based, there's just a lot of different ways those things get set up, especially working in a more underserved area, which I would think Yuma would be a little more on the underserved side. So I take that to mean, and this is a guess on my part, that he should have been reasonably familiar with this route, and perhaps he's been doing it on a regular basis for some time. I mean, he's got a commercial license, he's got an instrument rating, he's got his multi-engine certificate, he's got a very nice Cessna 340 that he owns and operates. So I don't know that it's an experience issue. I don't know how many hours he has or anything like that. That I didn't have that information. But it's just odd for someone who you would think, okay, he's probably done this flight before, at least on a semi-regular basis, and he's going into his hometown area, presumably his hometown airport, the airport he's based at, to not be familiar with some of the approaches and even if you don't do a lot of actual instrument flying, which again, I might find kind of hard to believe if he's doing this as a commute, and San Diego has a lot of that marine layer where the ceilings are relatively good, but you have a cloud layer that you have to descend through, especially if you were at cruise altitude, 10,000 feet, come down through a 1,000, 2,000 foot layer of clouds, and then you're back into VMC conditions. One thing that I was thinking of that wasn't really discussed on Juan Brown's channel very much, he went into a lot about the different types of cinematographic illusions that you can experience, like we talked about with, accelerating and feeling like you're climbing when in fact you may be putting in incorrect inputs, not trusting your instruments, getting spatial disorientation. To me, he sounded confused from the get-go, as you were saying, with the type of approach he was being asked to do. And I have to wonder a lot about fatigue in this case. I don't know how long after his last shift or work hours he was attempting this flight. But I can tell you, having worked, 8 hours at my day job today, I can tell by the end of the day, it's just very mentally tasking. Your brain consumes a lot of glucose dealing with complex patients all day long and trying to formulate various plans of care and juggle 100 different tasks. And then to fly home at the end of that, even if it's the next day, sometimes that's very, very demanding on your awareness level and your alertness level. That just makes you that much more likely to be susceptible to these kinds of issues. So I have to wonder about that.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing because, as I said, he did sound a little confused and maybe a little foggy, maybe.
He sounded a little foggy. He didn't sound sharp. You expect someone who's a cardiologist and who, has all of those ratings to maybe be a little bit sharper in what they're doing.
Yeah.
At the controls of an aircraft.
And perhaps maybe even a physiological, other than fatigue.
It doesn't have to
some
be
other
fatigue.
kind of a physiological.
Ron Brown talked a lot about things he didn't think it was. There wasn't really a case for carbon monoxide issues, or he was only at 10,000 feet, so it shouldn't have been a hypoxia issue. But I was actually trying to look up to see how old this particular doctor was, and I think he was 64. So you could have any number of physiologic ailments, that come up mid-flight.
What do you say?
That could, what's that?
So what do you say? People in their 60s should be careful.
People in general should be careful.
Yeah.
It's possible that those things can happen to any one of us at any time. And it can really, if you're not feeling well for any number of reasons, it can really impair your ability to make good decisions or be able to perform as you normally would.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about the doctor, I have a video that I'd like to play, a little video clip from NBC News 7 in San Diego, if you'll indulge me.
The pilot in that deadly crash.
NBC 7's Ali Rafa is in Yuma, Arizona, where this pilot worked as a cardiologist.
The plane's pilot was Dr. Sugata Das, a cardiologist here at Yuma Regional Medical Center for more than 15 years. And while it's still unclear what caused this deadly crash, Dr. Doss is being remembered by colleagues today as an incredible doctor and family man.
He was one of the senior members of the medical staff. He has been here quite a while. Everybody's kind of feeling a shock right now.
Yuma Regional Medical Center's Chief Medical Officer Dr. Bharat Magoo says Dr. Doss was an exceptional physician, adding in a statement today that this is a difficult time for everyone at the Yuma Regional Medical Center as they grieve the loss of an amazing physician and friend. Doss's wife Sujata declined to speak with NBC7 today after visiting the gated San Diego community where the Doss family lives. Dr. Doss was a passionate aviator, creating his own aviation company, which the twin-engine Cessna C340 that crashed Monday and another plane he owned are registered to. He's listed as a director in an online bio for a foundation that says a, quote, fortuitous incident in 2010 sparked Doss's interest in aviation, and that the father of 2 boys regularly flew between Yuma and San Diego, his family home. Doss attended flight school in San Diego. His testimonial on the flight school's website says his experience with his instructor, quote, spurred the flying bug in one of his sons.
So, looking at the pictures that they have of Dr. Doss, it doesn't look like he is in his 60s. He's very well preserved if he is.
Well,
but those may have been when he was a little bit younger. Yeah,
I think cardiologists probably tend to take reasonable care of themselves.
Well, yeah, like doctors wouldn't do anything that would be necessarily bad for their health, like run 3 marathons in a span of a week and a half.
That's bad for your health.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't say that.
Okay, fair enough. Dr. Jeff.
I am not a doctor, and I don't even play one on a podcast.
Yeah. No, I think that kind of, I hadn't seen that particular video before, but based on what the reporter was saying, it really does sound like he made that trip frequently. I would assume he was very familiar with the airspace in San Diego and around that particular airport that he was trying to get to, if that's where his home is. So there's things that don't add up, and I have strong suspicions, although I don't know any specific details, that fatigue played a role, or potentially some physiologic ailment of some sort caused his confusion, his task saturation, his disorientation, and the ultimate tragic ending here.
Yeah. We have one more little video clip that talks a little bit about one of the other people that lost their life in this accident, a UPS truck driver on the ground.
We are also learning more about the UPS driver who was killed in the plane crash. Steve Kruger was 60 years old. He was close to retiring. His brother described him as the fun uncle who loved the outdoors. He said Kruger loved his job at UPS and loved people. He said he really enjoyed interacting with all of his customers and was a really positive person, even when things were tough. He also talked about the shock of what happened and how it felt to see the burned shell of his brother's UPS truck.
My older brother spent 2 years building an exact replica of a World War I fighter plane. He crashed it twice and survived. And then Steve, driving a UPS truck, gets hit by an airplane. I mean, we're just like, this is, you can't write a movie about this stuff. And that's why some of this is just unbelievably shocking to us.
Yeah, well, Steve Kruger would have been 61 next month, and he had plans again to retire within a year. His brothers said they'll begin planning a big service to honor him very soon. Our coverage of the...
All right, there you go. Very sad. He was to be soon to be 61 years old. Yeah. Still a very young man.
No, absolutely. And it sounds like he was passionate about his job as well. Those pictures were actually really, I don't know, they were fun. It was him water skiing with UPS packages and skiing, and I'm sure he'll be missed by family and friends alike. Cool.
And he looked great for his age too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to get out there and do some more exercise or something.
I can help with that.
Or maybe, no, I don't need your help with that. I think I need to start dyeing my hair too.
Exercise plans.
Well, I don't know. I've seen Pilot Pip after he's run a marathon. Doesn't seem to do him much good.
Not my words, Pip. I thought you looked great. I didn't see you right afterwards, but we chatted a bit and you seemed fine to me.
We're sure you looked marvelous.
Perfect.
He did. He was at least 1 foot out of the coffin.
All right. Well, anything else to say about this? I think we did. You get a chance to put up that overlay, Liz, of the security camera that showed the airplane in its last couple of seconds before it crashed. I think I had that as an overlay, maybe not. Yeah, there you go. There's a little red circle around the Cessna 340 just shortly before it impacted. And there's the a picture of the airplane itself, 7022 Golf, and the UPS truck, what's left of it. Wow. It's very sad.
By the look of that aircraft, one wing down, the weather in the area is not awful.
No, and I mean,
it looks like there was a fair gap of visual flight conditions between the cloud base and the surface. So, even if he had been disorientated, when you come out of cloud disorientated, one glimpse of the real world, and you're reorientated like that. Yeah. So I just wonder what attitude. He's either in a very severe attitude when he came out and he just couldn't roll the aircraft fast enough or pitch it fast enough.
That,
or there was something else going on, because it doesn't. This doesn't look like the attitude of someone who's been, a few hundred feet in visual flight conditions, because, but normally you would have got pretty close, I would have thought, to getting the airplane back to wings level and at least be starting to pull for the horizon.
So there's that, and there's a notable lack of communications from him at the end of the Fast Aviation ATC.
So I'm wondering if an autopsy, if one's possible, might reveal something, but otherwise I understand the correlation between the accelerations and his height keeping. They're almost perfectly inverse of each other, which you would expect if he was reacting to an acceleration or deceleration illusion and not obeying his instruments. But I think there might have been more to that than just a straightforward disorientation.
I agree.
I suspect you're right. Hopefully we'll find out in the future. Okay. Let's continue with item letter D. This is from Nigel. And he says, "Hi crew, it seems British Airways saying that they would sell slots was enough to get the union back to the table, and they've now reached an agreement." So basically he said it was a deal, then it wasn't, now it is again. And this is an article from The Independent. And the British Airways reaches agreement with pilots over Gatwick short-haul subsidiary. The vast majority of British Airways short-haul flights from the West Sussex Airport have been suspended since March of 2020 due to the pandemic. They reached an agreement with pilots over a potential short-haul subsidiary at Gatwick. Pilots Union BALPA or BALPA said its members had approved a revised offer on pay and working hours after an initial proposal was rejected last month. The decision does not mean that the new subsidiary will definitely go ahead, as BA is yet to reach agreements with other parties, such as cabin crew. We would hope to begin operations next summer, according to a representative. And let's see, Rob Burgess, editor of frequent flyer website headforpoints.com, said the carrier might be able to employ cabin crew, ground staff, and other airport support staff at a cheaper rate than it can with the main British Airways staff. He added that the deal with pilots means it's now highly likely that the subsidiary will be launched. It would start up with up to 17 Airbus A320 aircraft based at Gatwick in summer 2022, which would be a smaller presence than the airline had in 2019. More planes would be added in line with growing demand over the following 3 to 4 years. What do you think, Nick?
Hard to say without getting more details on what the deal was, quite honestly, and we're never going to find out. Historically, Gatwick-based pilots in British Airways have generally been on a lower pay deal than what they considered the mainline pilots at Heathrow. But the union was always trying to obtain parity. It was working very hard on it. I don't know the ins and outs of the BA pay scales, but they may have actually done it before the pandemic. I don't know. But it sounds like that two-tier deal is back in play now, which I think is a real shame for the airline. it's not just going to be pay, isn't it? It's going to be conditions of service and perks and all the rest.
Right.
But I guess there are an awful lot of unemployed pilots in the UK at the moment. So the pilots union have got very little to work with when it comes to trying to push a better deal through. And they would rather have some of their pilots employed than none. So, yeah.
Yeah, I make a good point there regarding it's not just the pay scale, it's working conditions. We learned that when we were, Acme was going through bankruptcy and we were negotiating with the company for, the terms of our concessionary contract. And we learned from United Airlines and American Airlines that you have to be very careful about your working conditions in addition to the amount of pay that you're cutting. And they learned the hard way that was very important. And so we took that with us and were able to negotiate pretty close to the same kind of working rules that we had beforehand, before the bankruptcy. But, the pay did, of course, was almost cut in half. But our working conditions were still pretty good. So
yeah. And those working conditions are often very hard to get, because quite often the company can't afford to up, or say they can't afford to up a pay scale, but they'll offer something else in lieu of. And it might be additional staff travel rights, it might be a bit extra on your pension, or it might be something else in kind, which is very valuable to you. So if you don't negotiate the entire deal, then you're going to miss out.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Finally, not finally. Oh, I said finally. I'm sorry, Liz. It said final report was the title of this news item.
Yeah,
So I was thinking,
dog.
Final. Yeah, final. Okay. It's the last one. The next item in our news notebook is this final report, an accident that occurred when? On the 4th of October in 2019, a couple of years ago. And it's an interesting headline from the Aviation Herald, I believe. Yeah. Unconscious descent below the glide path and ground impact. Not sure it was unconscious.
The descent below glide path was not done intentionally?
Yeah, I think it was maybe unintentional descent below the glide path. It might be a factor of Austrian to English kind of thing going on.
Austrian language? You mean German?
Or German. Yeah, that. Shut up.
I'm sorry.
All right. The original narrative. Yeah, I'm not perfect.
Who is?
The original narrative went like this. A UAA, Ukraine Air Alliance Antonov AN-12 freighter, registration Uniform Romeo Charlie Alpha Hotel, performing flight 4050 from Vigo, Spain. Is that right? Vigo or Vigo? Vigo, I'd say.
Vigo.
To Lviv, Ukraine, with 7 crew and 1 passenger and a cargo of 13 tons consisting of car parts, was an approach to Lviv about 7.4 nautical miles before the airport when the aircraft disappeared from radar. The aircraft was subsequently found on the ground about 0.8 nautical miles before the runway in soil and vegetation near a soccer stadium and a cemetery, where the crew had attempted an emergency landing due to running out of fuel. 5 occupants were killed. 3 occupants were taken to hospitals with injuries. Now, that was shortly after this crash occurred in 2019. Come to find out that fuel was not a factor in this. They did have fuel on the aircraft. And on the 8th of October of this year, the final report was issued, concluding the probable causes of the accident were collision of a serviceable aircraft with the ground during landing approach in dense fog, the crew's failure to perform the flight in the instrument conditions. I think they mean perform it properly and successfully in instrument conditions due to the probable physical excessive fatigue, which led to an unconscious descent of the aircraft below the glide path and ground impact. And again, we said probably an unintentional descent below glide path and ground impact. The NBAAI reported all engines and propellers were serviceable at the time of the accident. The fuel system was serviceable and supplied fuel as needed for takeoff mode at the time of accident until the aircraft came to a rest. No defects or technical malfunctions were found with the aircraft or any of its systems. During takeoff from Vigo, the takeoff mass possibly exceeded the maximum takeoff mass by as much as 5,400 kilograms. The fuel remaining while in approach to Lviv did not permit to divert to Kiev Boryspil. The crew depart, so they had that pressure there. They kind of burned more fuel than they were anticipating, and the fuel that they did have available for going to an alternate in case the weather was bad at the destination airport, they basically burned through it. So they were under pressure to make this instrument approach in kind of poor conditions, low visibility, low ceilings. Also, it says they did not have their necessary rest. They did not comply with the regulations regarding work hours and rest times. The NBAAI reported there were 650 kilograms of fuel remaining during the accident approach. That was another
okay?
acorn or people throwing rocks at my steel roof. And it still makes me jump. About 170 liters of fuel could be drained from the wing tanks of the wreckage. The wing tanks had not been damaged. Due to the absence of the flight assignment logbook calculations of takeoff weight and aircraft CG performed by the crew before departure, the investigation team could not accurately establish that the aircraft takeoff weight or accurately establish the aircraft takeoff weight and CG. But taking into account the information received from the Vigo airport about the commercial cargo weight, documents of the cargo, the amount of fuel filled, and information received from the cockpit crew communication, the investigation team calculated that the takeoff weight of the aircraft during departure could make 66,400 kilograms. And according to the Antonov AN-12BK Aircraft Flight Operation Manual, the maximum takeoff weight shall be 61,000 kilograms. So it looks like they were overweight when they took off, hence the higher fuel burn than they had planned for. They analyzed that the aircraft performance until climbing through 6,600 meters suggested the aircraft was overloaded. The aircraft reached initial flight level 240 96 minutes after departure. Wow, that's a long time. And climbed to cruise flight level 250 another 86 minutes later. So the crew was coming into the airport final approach. They requested clearance from the controller to descend to flight level 120. And having received clearance, began the descent landing approach using the radar vectoring method as instructed by the controller. There were no deviations in the operation of the engines based on the results of the FDR decoding and according to the crew reports based on the results of CVR decoding. The height a little bit later, the height over the runway 31 threshold was 1,170 meters, descent rate -4 to -4.5 meters per second, flight speed 352 kilometers per hour, distance 15.7 kilometers. At a distance of 16.1 to 14.7, the aircraft in the process of descent completed the turn and entered the final. At a distance of 11 kilometers, the aircraft is 70 meters above the glide path, so they started out a little bit high. Let's see, the vertical rate of descent was -6.5 meters per second. And it's approximately 196 feet per minute, I believe, per 1 meter per second. So you can do the math. There is kind of a high rate of descent. The aircraft decreased the descent and approached the glide path. Okay, we're good. We're about to intercept the glide path from above, and we should be set, right? The crew reported on the localizer beam for the ILS approach to runway 31. The controller instructed to continue. The ILS approach to runway 31, the mean vertical descent rate was 4 to 4.5 meters per second. At a little while later, the crew extended the landing gear at a distance of 13.9 kilometers, according to recorders. And then it has a little note here about what the aircraft flight manual says about when the landing gear should be extended, etc. I don't think it's really too pertinent, really. They began to deploy flaps to 15 degrees. Their instrument speed was 326 kilometers per hour. And this note here didn't make any sense to me. According to the flight operation manual, when approaching the landing, the flaps shall be deployed in 3 stages, 15, 25, and 35. The maximum flight speed with flaps at 15 shall be 340 kilometers per hour. Well, they were doing 326, so they were below that maximum flight speed. So it says, thus the flaps were extended at a lower speed than established by the flight operation manual. But that said the maximum.
That's a limit usually, not a...
Right, it's not a low speed limit, it's a high speed
limit.
Yeah,
that's
I'm wondering
why
if that you should read minimum flight speed with flaps 15 rather than maximum.
Maybe. Could be.
But
yeah. I don't know.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me there.
Right, unless they just had a misunderstanding of what that flight operation note meant. Anyway, I was kind of scratching my head on that one. I think, well, why are they even making that point? Because they were below that max speed. But anyway, after the flaps were deployed by 15 degrees, one of the crew members, the flight engineer, reported the aircraft configuration 15, landing gear extended, landing weight 53. I guess 53,000 tons, I'm guessing.
1,000 tons, that's quite heavy.
I'm sorry, 53 tons. 53 tons, my bad. At a distance of, leave me alone. At a distance of 10.64 kilometers to the glide slope beacon, additionally, flaps were extended by 20. The flight speed was 316. Let's get down to the, let's see. At a distance of 8 kilometers from the glide slope beacon, the aircraft reaches the glide path. At a distance of 7.9 kilometers, the aircraft crosses the glide path and continues to gradually descend below the glide path. Okay, so there's the glide path. Okay, now they're below the glide path. At that time, the internal engines, the inside engines, I guess, were operating. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't even understand what that means. During the descent, it's necessary to balance the aircraft with the trim so that the aircraft steadily maintains the specified flight mode. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The crew extended the flaps to 35 degrees. The aircraft was below the glide path and continued to descend 3 to 4 seconds after the flaps were extended. The thrust of the external engines, I'm assuming again that means the outboard engines, increased and the vertical rate of descent began to increase. So the descent kept increasing. According to the flight operation manual, I don't think that's going to matter here. Let me see. At a distance of 2.86 kilometers from the runway threshold, the crew increased the thrust mode of the external engines 42 to 43. I guess it's a power setting by the engine torque meter, while the vertical descent rate was 4 to 5 meters per second, which exceeds the rate established for the LVIV aerodrome. The aircraft moved below the glide path by 65 meters. The actual altitude was 105 meters. After 7 to 8 seconds, the vertical rate increases again. The aircraft descended further below the glide path. The operating mode of the engines. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward here a little bit further. Here's a lot of data.
None of which appears to be particularly relevant. I'm confused.
I mean, all of it's basically to say that they descended below the glide slope, they increased their rate of descent, they did not correct it, and they impacted the ground short of the runway.
Yes, about 5. Let's see. Okay, at a height of about 30 meters. Okay, that's what, about 100 feet over the runway threshold. 2 to 3 seconds before collision with trees, the elevator deviates to pitching up to about 75% of the max value, but these actions were not enough to reduce the vertical speed, and the aircraft continued to descend with a vertical speed of 6 meters per second, which is 1,181 feet per minute. I did the calculations on that because these meters per second things weren't making...
Thank you for doing that because that means nothing to me.
Yeah, so 1,181 feet per minute, we were kind of familiar with that kind of a descent rate.
That's a lot, yeah.
A lot. Yeah, I mean, you should be at the most, at that speed, maybe 600, 700 feet per minute or so, on a normal 3-degree glide path. At a height of 5 to 7 meters from the ground surface, that's really close to the ground. What, that's 25 feet, 25 feet? At a distance of 5,000 feet from the threshold of the runway that collided with trees. They're way below the glide path.
Yeah.
And that was it. So it wasn't fuel starvation. Engines were operating fine. Props were operating fine. They had fuel. They went through the glide path and didn't seem... Well, it looks like they made an effort to...
Probably when they saw the ground, when they broke out of whatever low cloud layer at, what was that, 100 feet?
Yeah, very low. But, but the engines before they broke out, the engines, it looks like they were making an attempt to add power, but it just wasn't enough to really arrest
Wasn't
the descent
sufficient.
rate. Yeah. So, so I think we also kind of speculated, didn't we, when we were talking about this a couple of years ago, that they were carrying car parts and there was something about contraband, and, maybe it wasn't really car parts, or if it was, they were like heavier than, they were supposed, I remember that discussion about this when we saw this originally. But, it turns out that except for the possibility of that it was overloaded a bit, it looks to me like just fatigue, the major factor here. They didn't get enough
fly
rest.
The glide slope.
Yeah, they just they saw they were below the glide path. They made a little effort to correct for it, and then they weren't really
weren't
that's
really
good
into
enough.
it. That's fine.
So here's a few thoughts. When you're pitching up at an airfield where the weather is poor, and you're en route and you're picking up the weathers and thinking ahead, there are plenty of opportunities before you get to the point where you can no longer divert, where you can go, weather's not looking good here, we haven't got enough fuel, let's go to an alternate while we still have the fuel to do that. Once you commit to go to an airfield and you won't have fuel to divert, you've got to be sure that the weather is good enough for you to land. So that's mistake number one, and it's a real big one in my book. Once you've established that you are going to have to land, if you're going to fly an approach that you must land off because you're so low on fuel, you can't go anywhere, you've got to fly it well. Finally, and to me one of the biggest sins was at an altitude of 60 meters, the radio altimeter alarm decision altitude was triggered. They flew through their decision altitude without being able to see the ground or the runway or anything. Now, even if you've, can't divert, you can still go around and fly another approach. Perhaps the weather will have picked up a bit, but you don't press below your decision altitude, certainly if you're not certain that you're on the glide slope and not flying the approach particularly well. Once you hit that decision altitude and you can't see the ground, you go around, have another go. You might have fuel for that. You might fly the approach better next time. There was some definitely weird and wrong things, wrong thinking on the flight deck, some poor flying as well.
Do you know if the times they listed were local times? Because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm not sure. I was wondering about that too, but I have a feeling it was probably dark.
Yes. Dark and poor weather.
Poor weather, dark. Maybe they were just thinking, if we just duck down enough, we'll probably break out and then we'll be able to continue from that. I mean, that's it's not a good idea. But they may have been at that point, as you said, Nick, they made those big mistakes by not diverting somewhere else on the way to this airport, and then they basically committed themselves and said, this is it.
Compounded it with even bigger mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you can have a look, go down to decision altitude, you got fuel to make another approach, fine, go around, set it up again, say, right, this time, guys, we've got to try and land the airplane off this approach. We've no more fuel to do another one. That's the one that you crash on.
Yeah.
You don't crash with enough fuel to have another go.
Right. When you crash, you don't want a big fireball.
Exactly. That's another good reason for it. But, at least you've got your brain, you've had a go, you've established that, this is not going to work. Let's go around, set it up, take our time, make sure this is the best instrument approach we'll ever fly, and perhaps we'll get away with it.
I sense that everybody in that cockpit were sensing the fact how really bad this situation was, because it doesn't really talk about the crew communication, like anybody saying, hey, go around, you're well below the glide. It was like everybody was quiet from what I can tell.
And that minimum's
sleeping
call out that no one on the flight deck commented that they'd just gone through minimums without being able to see the runway environment. No one said a thing. So either they all knew that they had to land off this approach, or they were regular busters of minimums and of regulations, or the skipper, just were one of those pilots that wouldn't listen to his crew, so they didn't bother.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that's the case, really.
Right.
But that is a possibility.
And the other thing is possibility, I'm just saying, maybe they were listening to one of our episodes of the Airline Pilot Guy show. They all fell right asleep.
Well, it's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
I hope no one ever does that when they're flying.
Or
Unless
driving.
you're a passenger.
Or driving.
Oh, boy.
And Mr. Boxes says that classic minimums. Yeah, gives you a heartbeat to try and catch the lights. But they were never going to see the lights at that altitude anyway. They were.
Oh, hey, it's min. There it is.
You can always.
We're going green.
No, that's not it. Let me try this
We need that one later on.
There we go.
Yes, you can.
It's
Except
Shift G.
if you haven't got any fuel left.
Fuel.
Yeah, well, most of the time. Maybe not always.
Yeah.
But pretty much all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Very sad.
Okay. Very sad, yes. Okay, last one. Scrapped Air India jet gets stuck under a bridge. Okay, this is from yahoo.news.com. This is the extraordinary moment. A huge Boeing plane got stuck underneath a bridge while being driven on the motorway. Well, you shouldn't have been driving the Boeing on a highway. That's dumb. Anyway, footage from the Gurugram Delhi highway in North India shows the nose of the aircraft and half of its body under the iron footbridge, with the rest of the plane firmly lodged near the wing area towards the back of the plane. A trailer had been driving the unused Air India plane at 1:15 a.m. on Sunday morning to its new owner, but it became lodged below the bridge halfway through the journey. There we go.
So incredible to me is that it made it this far under the bridge.
Yeah.
Like, what did it? Oh, is there like something on the fuselage that it then finally got stuck on?
Perhaps it was
Like
at a
the-
slight angle.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, a little bit angled.
Did it have a fin?
Well, that would have been their next issue. For sure, that would have stopped them. So I'm assuming that the tail fin was gone. Looks like they must have cut the fuselage off from the back.
I love the spokesman for Air India when he says Air India has no connection whatsoever with the aircraft under any circumstances, except it was an Air India aircraft. Apart from that, we have absolutely no connection.
Yes,
we wash our hands of this incident.
Yes, it's not ours anymore. It may say Air
sold
India
it.
all over it.
They screwed it up.
They're thinking, next time we do this, let's make sure that we paint over that.
Wait, the rest of his quote is great too, though. It appears to be a scrapped plane, and the driver may have made an error while transporting it.
May have.
And just in case you thought it was Delhi Airport's fault, the aircraft certainly does not belong to Delhi Airport.
No, nobody is claiming ownership of this airplane.
Nothing to do with us, sir.
Not ours.
Nothing to see here. Go away.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
That
All the
was a good
slopey
one.
shouldering. Oh.
Yeah. So we thought we'd end the news segment with something funny, I guess, instead of all these crashes.
Neil reckons they got at least 50% under the bridge. That's a good result. Isn't
Good
it?
point.
A
Yeah.
very good result.
Sometimes hitting the 50% barrier is not quite good
Sometimes
enough.
it's a really hard barrier.
Yeah.
Just a firm stop.
Or maybe somebody lowered that bridge. I don't know. I don't think it's a movable
They're like,
bridge.
quick, lower the bridge.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right.
If they're going to scrap it anyway, what does it matter?
They were just helping with them with the scrapping procedure.
I don't know that they meant to scrap the bridge too.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully
Bridge
is
probably
okay.
got a little
that's
damaged.
true.
Yeah. All right. We are now going to cover that segment which we call Getting to Know Us, which is what we do each week to kind of find out what each of us have been up to. And by the way, don't believe I mentioned it yet, but the reason why Miami Rick isn't with us is because he is out there doing his job, making money and flying airplanes and stuff for you all that you've ordered from Amazon and stuff. Anyway, he is going to join me. Oh, wait, no, that's what he's doing. He's ironing. There, thank you, Liz.
Still?
Yeah, well, he likes his shirts nice and crisply ironed.
There's going to be no cotton left in that shirt if he keeps doing that.
He goes through shirts quickly.
So Rick and I are going to get together tomorrow and do a part 2. So please.
Well, you better give him a shirt inspection when he comes on.
I'll do that. All right. Rick and I will do that tomorrow, and anybody else who might be available, you're welcome to join us. So let's talk about what's been happening. I'm going to go again. I'm going to go first because, and Steph probably definitely last because she's been the one that has been doing the most stuff, I think. I was on a 3-day trip, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're recording this on a Thursday, so I got back on Wednesday yesterday. Had layovers in Omaha and Myrtle Beach, and had a good trip, flying with one of my favorite first officers, Brent. And we did not really find...
Hey, Brent. No barbecue or no...
Well, we...
in Myrtle Beach?
In Omaha, but Omaha's really, I guess, not known for barbecue. So we didn't find any there. And we went to a sports bar and had some really spicy wings and some mediocre nachos and stuff. But in Myrtle Beach, we ended up going to a place called like Sweet Carolinas or something like that. I have a feeling it's a chain. But I had a sandwich that had some brisket in it, but it wasn't not really that great. So, oh well. But
was that right by the airport there in that?
Well, no,
area?
no. We usually, and especially the kind of trips that I fly, we're usually away from the airport. And this was a little area they call Broadway by the beach, and it's like a bunch of shops and stuff that go around this like little pond. And that's almost like a little. It reminded me of that. What is that thing called near Disney, like downtown Disney or something like
Disney,
that?
Yeah,
kind of reminded me of that.
There's a lot of like mini golf and places.
Yeah,
is that
a lot of that sort of stuff. Ferris wheel, and they have helicopters giving people rides and that kind of thing. Anyway, so it was a nice walk to and from the hotel, a little over a mile each way, which was good. At least we got some exercise. And that's about it for my trip. And someone named Gubby, I believe he's with us in the live audience. He's up there in Ottawa, and he said, anyone available for a meetup? He said, happy to organize it, but could you maybe ask if any APGers are up for getting together in the Ottawa region? Loving the show. Keep it up. That's what she said. He's going along with the whole shtick, so to speak. Like Captain Nick, I'm an XRAF, or I'm XRAF. I'm now in the RCAF, the Royal Canadian Air Force, here in Ottawa. He spells with a D and a W. And he said, see y'all tomorrow.
There's a W in Ottawa.
After the rumours about you leaving the RAF, Gabby, I'm surprised the Canadians let you in. But what? I shouldn't say anymore.
You're not discriminating, Liz said. Not very discriminating. Yeah. There you go. So, hey, if you are interested in getting together with Gubby in Ottawa for a meetup, he has allowed us to give his email address, which is probably a huge mistake, but he said it was okay. And I'm guessing that maybe he flew helicopters because his email address is hueymeister@hotmail.com. Huey being H-U-E-Y.
That's him vomiting.
Oh, is it? Oh. Huey! Oh, okay. It has nothing to do with the Huey helicopter.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. HUEYMEISTER, hueymeister@hotmail.com. So if you want to contact Gubby and get together with some like-minded APGers there in Ottawa, that would be fantastic. We'd love. And make sure if you do that you record something and take some pictures. Like someone did in another meetup that just occurred recently, which we'll get to in the feedback section. So that's cool. I hope that you'll be able to organize something, Gubby.
What's that very dark, very weird German drink, something Meister?
Jägermeister.
Jägermeister, there you go. You need to have a Jägermeister
Jaeger
meetup.
bombs for everybody.
Maybe that's why he was a Huey Meister.
Yes, exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Too many Jägermeisters.
Yes, I will have his email in the show notes, Liz. Thank you. And then if that fails, then you can always send something to us and we can try to coordinate or forward it or whatever. But we'd rather you just go directly to Gubby. and get that done so we can.
Yeah, and if you do, have fun.
Oh, look.
UH-1D.
He
with
did
the
fly the
Luftwaffe.
Huey.
With
Oh,
the
and
Luftwaffe.
Huey
Wow.
Meister, the Meister being a German word for master, right?
Mm.
Yeah, he has been around, Liz. Watch out. All right.
He can rub his tummy and pat his head at the same time.
How about that?
Yeah.
And let's talk about this before. I usually forget this, but I'm not going to forget it this week because it's a huge image in my Getting to Know Us notebook. And Liz is working on getting the overlay. There it is. That was the cover art for our last episode, which was entitled Wakey Wakey. Now, I don't know. They say that that's something that is a meme in England and Europe and such. I'm not really sure I've heard of that over here.
No, if it's a
in the
meme, but
US.
you've definitely heard wakey wakey.
Well, I've heard of Wakey Wakey, yeah. Anyway.
One thing nobody commented on was the hammer that was ringing the alarm bell is Adam Spink.
Oh, I see.
Nobody
It's
has
the top of the
spotted
tower.
that.
Yeah, we
I saw
see
it once
that up there.
once you mentioned it.
Yeah, and so is that because he has such a hard head?
No, that's because it's the air traffic control tower, and because he has a hard head.
Oh,
yes.
it's an air traffic control tower.
Well, that's the Heathrow
Yeah.
air traffic control tower with the alarm clock on it instead.
I see.
And of course, Adam would be up there ringing the bells anyway. And because it's got Steph's Jeep, a new coloured Jeep.
A hot pink Jeep,
hot
but it's
pink
not really
airplane.
a Jeep. It's an airplane that says it's a Jeep.
Well, because
we are an aviation show.
Yeah.
And there's a big cock in it.
Well, yes. If you want to see that, you should check out the show notes or subscribe to our show, maybe. And what a oh shoot!
It's got a big clock and a big cock. Very impressive.
You can just say goodbye to that PG rating now for this show.
I know. Well, I can't find the one. And here it is.
And what a beautiful cock it is.
Yes. Thank you,
you go.
Steph.
It's lovely.
All right. Yes.
16 inches high.
Wow. That's a lot.
All right.
What can we say? Yeah.
That's about
I
all you
always
can
feel
say.
inadequate when I hear that.
Sorry.
That's all I have to say. And now, Nick, we're going to go to you, and you can tell us what's been happening with you.
Okay, I had an interesting week. Nice and quiet, and got on with plain tales and things. But today, I had a meeting with our lovely friend from PTUK, the great Neville Bounds, and we were wandering over to FAST, which is a very quick museum. It takes only 2 seconds to look around. No, I'm joking. FAST is the Farnborough. I had it here a second ago. The Farnborough Air Sciences Trust Museum. It's not the FAST rings that comes straight off the tongue, doesn't it? But the actual what it stands for, not quite so. So Air
Not so much.
Sciences Trust Museum. So we know that we've mentioned it lots of times that the Royal Aircraft Establishment was based at Farnborough, a fantastically historic organisation. And this is a museum of various artifacts that they've managed to collect. And we had a good look round, which was absolutely fabulous. I got to lean on an airplane. There's me leaning on an airplane. Now, there's a bit of significance there because, I don't know, more years than I care to think about, that was me leaning on a very similar aeroplane. I think
Very
yes,
similar.
That's definitely me. So they're both fallen nats. Now, the significance of that fallen nat is that it was the very first fallen nat I ever flew in.
Wow.
Yeah, same airplane, absolutely the same. And I went, wow, you've got the same. I only flew it twice, but that was on my.
And it's been
very
in that
first
museum ever since.
Yeah, ever since. It was wrecked. Never flew again. They said, you lot can have it. Anyway, that was great. So I had a look around there and thoroughly enjoyed it. Super to see the old fallen nat again. They very nicely opened up a Harrier, and I sat in a Harrier, as did Neville. But he looks a lot better sitting in it than I did, I'm sure, actually. So there's Neville gripping his stick, so doing a great job.
Seems like he's
and we had
practice.
a look around the museum, which has some. It's not a huge museum, but it's very hands-on, and they've got lots of cockpits to look around. And they've got like 3 or 4 simulators, including a Concorde simulator, and a Spitfire simulator. So absolutely fabulous place. And there, I had that picture. There was really primarily for Rick, because he has a thing about jet engines, and that is Whittle, one of the very first jet engines ever made, W2, the number 10. So I'm assuming it's the 10th version of the Whittle W2. Brilliant. And then we did look at this room here. Now, this is a beautiful conference room, and I thought, well, that's very fancy. Lovely big conference table in the middle, lots of seating. And it was explained to me that this is now called the Trenchard room, and this was Lord Trenchard's office, and it was in that office that he formed the Royal Air Force. Trenchard is known as the father of the Royal Air Force, and it was in that office that the arrangements were made to change the Royal Flying Corps into the Royal Air Force, the world's longest continuous serving Air Force.
Wow.
So that's a great deal of history. The whole building has an enormous history. You'll hear more of it later. And you'll also hear more about that room and have a chance possibly to visit and join us there for a very special occasion. More of that later, because we haven't really decided where, when, how, why, and all the details. So we'll let you know more about that in the future. But it was a lovely recce and very nice to see the Fast Museum. Thank you very much indeed for George, who you can see there looking out the window, who is the curator of the museum, and for Phil, the scientist who arranged the visit. Phil, we met at the the Fair Oaks meetup a few weeks back, and he wanted to get my take on a trial that I did there at Farnborough called Joust, which was one that he was very much involved in setting up and organising, all about the design and capabilities of future aircraft. So they had a lot of the team that organised and set up that trial there, and we had a little meeting and chatted about the days. It was quite a few years ago now. So, but it was great to see everyone, and hopefully they got some good gen out of that meeting. So anyway, more. Hold yourselves in readiness for future announcements regarding
that room. Looks like it could be useful.
You
to
reckon?
us in the future.
I think it might be. I think it might be. So let's. Should we keep it under our hats for the moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. Anything else, sir? Or shall we move on now
me.
to Steph? Steph, have you been doing anything at all
No, nothing.
in the last week or so?
Very boring.
Okay.
I had 3 days off of work at home. That was really a luxury. I can't remember the last time I've taken off of work and stayed at home. But then after that, is Nick trying to say something to me?
Yeah. 3 days off. Is that because you were too tired to get out of bed?
No, I was out of bed. I did a lot of things, actually.
Tell us more.
No, I was just productive around the house. I went through, I cleaned some stuff, and just a bunch of to-do things that I've been neglecting for a very, very long time at my house. So that was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What day did we do the show last week? We definitely talked about I'd been in the UK and met up with Nick and ran the London Marathon, and I got back home on Monday. And then I guess one of those days, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, we did the show. But then Friday, back out on the road again. I did mention in the last show I had 2 more marathons to run last weekend. It's going to be 3 World Marathon Majors in 8 days. So I did London on Sunday the 3rd, Chicago on Sunday the 10th, and then Boston on Monday the 11th. And a 5K in Chicago on Saturday morning too.
Yeah.
As you do.
As you do, yeah.
They have it set up as kind of a shakeout run, and I run it every year with my brothers. Although one of my brothers forgot to sign up, so boo on him. Joe and I ran it though, and had a great time. But Friday I had to go to Boston first. You're going, Steph, why are you going to Boston first? You have to run Chicago first, not Boston. Yes, well, in London, and actually didn't end up taking advantage of this, but they allowed you to designate someone else to pick up your bib and drop off your gear at the expo if you weren't able to make it. No such luck in Boston and Chicago. You have to go yourself to the expo because they wanted your in-person verification of either vaccination status or negative COVID testing, which they would do right there on the spot if you were not vaccinated. Fortunately, Boston had a very efficient system set up, so I waited, I don't know, close to maybe an hour to get in to the expo in London on Saturday afternoon because that was just a really busy time. But I went up to Boston Friday morning, basically got off the plane. I took a water taxi over into the city, which was actually, it was a beautiful day for it. It was like 70 something degrees, really sunny, nice weather. And the reason I did the water taxi was because they offered luggage storage with the cost of your round trip ticket. And I didn't want to tote my rollerboard suitcase all through Boston and on the train and over into the expo. It just seemed like a big hassle, even though I saw some other people doing it as well. So yeah, stored my luggage with the water taxi folks, took the train over to, I forget where you had to go to some tents they had set up in Copley Square first and do your vaccine verification, and then walk down the street to the Heinz Convention Center, pick up your bib. Got all of that done, and then started to make my way back to the airport because I did actually have to go to Chicago. Stopped for a lobster roll. I had a lot of lobster rolls this past weekend, and it was lovely. It's one of my favorite New England treats. And actually met up with my cousin in the airport who was doing the exact same thing that I was doing, picking up her bib for Boston so that she could go run in Chicago. And we flew on the same flight back to Chicago. Strangely, I've done a lot of my flying mostly on American Airlines since it's the kind of the hometown airline here, and I have all my miles and points with them, but the Southwest flight worked out better, and I'm glad that was on Friday and not later in the weekend because they had a little bit of a meltdown later in the weekend. A little bit. But it was perfect on Friday. Everything ran smoothly and on time. Got to Chicago, got checked into my hotel, met up with my brothers. We went to dinner at, my cousin opened a new restaurant up in the Evanston area, so we checked that out on Friday night. And actually got some decent rest Friday night. Woke up Saturday morning, ran that 5K that I was talking about. And I went straight to the expo because I wanted to pick up my bib for Chicago before everyone got there because I didn't want to wait in more lines if I could help it. There was about a 15-minute wait when I got there. It had just opened, so it wasn't too bad. Picked up my stuff and then had actually a really nice day in Chicago. We had wonderful weather. It was beautiful, sunny, 70-something degrees. Had a chance to meet up with one of my best friends from going all the way back to grade school in the evening, and my couple of my brothers and I went to lunch with my aunt, and we saw my other aunt and uncle who were both running the Chicago Marathon. My Uncle Tom ran the race on Sunday on his 70th birthday, so it was very impressive, and after having had a knee replacement a couple years ago, so even more impressive. And yeah, got up on Sunday morning, ran the Chicago Marathon. It was a hot day in Chicago. It was almost 80 degrees by the finish. But fortunately, it pretty much stayed overcast and it was fairly windy. So I was able to manage the heat a little bit better than I expected. And actually had a decent time. I was, after I ran in London, I ran a 4:22, had some discussions with my coach about the times that I should be targeting. We weren't really sure. When we realized it was going to be hot, we decided it was not going to be a smart idea to really push too hard and then have to run the next day. So we were kind of looking at 4:15 as a comfortable finish time, but still, getting out there and working a little hard, not just loafing through the whole thing. And I ended up running a 4:06 in Chicago, so that was good.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really happy with that. I felt really good in Chicago. I crossed the finish line. I went, I probably should have pushed a little bit harder, actually. And I could tell I was walking through the finish line area, and you have to walk through Grant Park, and then you have to go down a couple stairs and out of the park and back over to the hotel. And watching everyone try to negotiate the stairs after a marathon is always a little bit of a spectator sport
you
in and of
collapse?
itself. No. Most people have a lot of trouble because your quads just really don't want to do that motion anymore. So a lot of people end up going down the stairs backwards, or they're doing this, like, they call it the zombie walk down the stairs. I just kind of like skipped down all of them. I was like, see you guys. Got to go back up myself.
Show off.
I felt like a little bit of a show off. I really did. And yeah, I went back to the hotel, packed up my stuff, basically got straight on a train and went to O'Hare and flew over to Boston. Had some spaghetti in the airport in O'Hare at the Macaroni Grill, got to Boston and found a really nice restaurant right across the street from my hotel in Cambridge that had, I was looking for protein and they had a half chicken as their special. I was like, yes, that's perfect. Half chicken and a session IPA was my pre-Boston Marathon dinner. And crashed at the hotel. My poor cousin, it was her dad who was turning 70 and running the marathon in Chicago on Sunday. So she took a later flight because she wanted to be there to congratulate him at the finish and congratulate her mom, who was also running. And she was flying on Southwest, and her flight ended up getting delayed several hours. So she didn't get to the hotel until about 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
I forget.
no.
Yeah. She's just got this very great, upbeat, optimistic personality. She's like, I got 5 hours of sleep. I was fine. So she was good to go. And Monday mornings, this is Monday, Marathon Monday in Boston always. This was Columbus Day as opposed to the usual Patriot Day marathon in April. So definitely an unusual event. The 125th running of the Boston Marathon, actually. Been going on for quite a long time. Got up early. I had breakfast plans with a running friend of mine. His name is Ron. I'll talk about him in just a second too, because this comes back to podcasting. And a couple of our other mutual friends over at his hotel in the city. And I actually had time before, because they did an interesting thing in Boston where they allowed a rolling start. So instead of setting up everyone in corrals and having each corral go in turn, they gave you a time to get on the bus. You have to be bussed out to Hopkinton. And once you get off the bus, you're basically free to start whenever you'd like. But you can't get on the bus before your bus time. So they try to still keep everyone in kind of some sort of order according to your predicted run times, finish times. So I had time. They're much faster than me. I was like, I'm going to go back to my hotel and see if my cousin's okay. So I got over there. She was up and dressed and ready to go. And we went back into the city, got on our buses. And again, another really nice day. I actually felt more of the effects of the heat in Boston than I did in Chicago, even though it was maybe only 70 degrees, but it was sunny the whole time and there was less wind. So I think I actually got a little bit of a suntan running on Monday. But it's kind of the same goal, go out in about a 2-hour half marathon and then just, stay comfortable through the finish. And I finished in 4:11. And that was, I was really happy with that.
Two amazing races.
Yeah. And I feel
incredible.
Someone was asking how my legs are doing today. I feel fine, to be honest. I've got a run on my calendar for this evening because I talked with my coach about it. He said, yeah, you might as well go out and do a couple mile shakeout. I said, we'll do that. And back into the training.
Neil Landwarm in the live audience kind of speaks for all of us. All joking aside, magnificent achievement, Steph. You're awesome.
Thank you, Neil.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
And do you have which marathon are you going to be doing this weekend?
I'm not. Hopefully back to flying this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Marathon amounts of flying for the nice weather that we're having here, because it's still gorgeous. It was like 85 degrees today and sunny. It was beautiful. It's supposed to be a nice weekend, I think. Going back to podcasting for a second, I mentioned my friend Ron. After the race on Tuesday, met back up with him, and he has a podcast that is about running. His thing is he likes to chat with people on long runs, and he's from the New York City area, and everyone in Central Park pretty much knows who Ron is as a runner. But he often meets up with people, and he was, just likes to chat with people on his runs. And he thought, what a great idea for a podcast. We'll just do run chats. So he does just kind of an interview show with interesting people in the running community, and I was honored to be his guest for his next episode. We recorded that on Tuesday morning, and it should come out sometime next week. So it's Run Chats with @RonRunsNYC, and it'll be episode 55, I think.
Well, we'll have to mention it again next week, and then we'll have a link in the show notes for the next show.
It's all about everything I just talked about, although more detail and more some of the funny things that happened along the way. because there were a few funny things for sure.
Very cool.
A funny thing happened on the way to the marathon.
To the marathon, yes.
Somebody's suggesting in the live audience that we do an APG 500 marathon. It'd be a rather short show. Then I guess, yeah. Very short. Yeah. Or no, you say, Nick. On the contrary, it will probably take 2 days.
Yes, well, certainly will for me.
Yeah, a week maybe for me.
I could walk it in a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's don't do that.
No.
Let's do one where we're sitting down. Okay. Is that it? Anything else, Steph? Come on. Kind of boring.
It was kind of boring. Back to work yesterday and today, and I'll tell you what, we were talking about fatigue with just normal work. I feel much more fatigued today having worked a full schedule than I did in 8 days of marathon running and traveling all over the place.
Kind of lifting up those big shots.
Yes.
Really heavy.
It has nothing to do with it's just, so I think it's the mostly the mental taxation to mental effort. There's not a lot I'm not thinking a lot during running. I am, but none of it's very important. Mostly right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot.
It's important thinking when you're poking sharp needles into people's backs.
Yes, much more.
Do you ever go right foot, left foot, left foot, left foot, right foot?
Was that some kind of a shuffle?
That can happen, but then it gets a little messy.
Could be a dance, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dances, I know it has nothing to do with this, but we're going to do the coffee fund right now. And here's Jeff Smith to sing for us.
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. All right, the Coffee Fund. It's your way to support the show financially. And a couple of different ways to do that. We have the OG, the original Coffee Fund Classic method, which is via PayPal. And we can do individual one-off contributions using that method, or you can do a recurring kind of a donation thing. Several of you do that. And this week, we didn't have any recurring or one-off donations via that method, but we do also have something called Patreon. You can become a patron of the show, and that's where you pledge a certain amount per episode. And we have a new producer. We have a patron who signed up as Sierra Mike Kilo, but we're going to call him Sean, and I'm basing that on your email address, Sean. He's trying to be a wise guy there, I think. But we do appreciate the fact that you've signed up to become a patron of the APG. So thank you, Sean. If you're interested in learning about Patreon and the Coffee Fund Classic method, head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. Now, this is normally when we go to the feedback segment, but since we're doing a two-parter, I'm assuming that Liz is trying to tell me that she's trying to direct me that we should go right on into this week's installment of the Plain Tale. Yep, that's what she's telling me. And so let's do that right now. Okay, control room is saying, wait a second. Oh, okay. Let me know when you're ready. All right, here we go. This week's Plain Tale is the second part of the Mike Wildman story. Take it away, old pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. The Mike Wildman Story, Part 2. This is the second part of my interview with Mike Wildman, an amputee pilot who's had a fascinating career in aviation. The first part covered Mike's life in the Royal Air Force, flying, amongst other aircraft, the C-130 Hercules. In this part, we hear about his life-changing decision to have part of his left leg removed, and his fight not only to get back into the cockpit of an aircraft, but to lead the world's first disabled formation display team. We join Mike as he tells us about his decision to leave the Royal Air Force. Now, how did you find the change into civil life?
I loved it. I mean, Virgin was, it still is, a halcyon kind of lifestyle. We weren't flying that hard. I remember doing 2 or 3 trips a month when I first joined the airline, going to the sort of destinations you could only imagine: Tokyo, Cape Town, Delhi, flying with people like yourself, so flying with like-minded friends, 16 cabin crew, 5-star hotels. I thought I died and gone to heaven, to be honest. That was absolutely marvellous. Got my command, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I didn't get to fly anything else. I flew 340s effectively my entire career. I got in there at the start and it finished at the end. But it was a wonderful aeroplane, and we had a really nice lifestyle. Unfortunately, I've been in the company only about 6 years or so when I had a really bad motorcycle accident.
Oh, tell me what happened.
Well, to try and keep in with all my Belgian mates, once I'd come home, about 6 of us, went on a motorbike holiday every year with my mates from the Belgian Air Force. And this particular year, I decided to buy a new motorcycle because I didn't have one. Went down to France the next day, down to Bastogne. We stayed overnight and then launched off the next day. The guys were all on really fast motorbikes that they'd had for years.
What did you have?
I had a BMW 1200 GS, so it was like...
Not exactly slow.
Not exactly slow, but I wasn't used to it. What I should have said is, I'll go at the front, or I'll meet you at the hotel. What I didn't was, I was at the back, the slowest, was racing to catch up with them, overcooked it into a bend, hit a dry stone wall and went down a ravine in France.
A dry stone wall? You went through it?
Well, no, the bike flipped over the top. He flipped me over the top. The bike came back into the road and I went down the ravine.
Oh my God.
And took pretty much all the kinetic energy through my left ankle. It was really, really badly smashed up, as you can imagine. Doctors initially down in Luxembourg, because we weren't even sure which country we were in.
How did they find out about it for a start? Because you're at the back.
Yeah, they came back to find me, found debris in the road, and then a bit like an initial officer training IoT exercise, they had to go down and find me and bring me back up, because the ambulance wouldn't. The ambulance had eventually arrived, but wouldn't go down and get me. And so these Belgian Air Force pilots got some sort of hoarding from the side of the road and were able to pull me back up to the road.
What sort of state were you in?
Well, initially my leg was through 180 degrees.
Oh my God.
So anyway, let's not go there. So I think I had 6 weeks in hospital in Luxembourg and then back to the UK, where they managed to sort of put it all back together, but it was obviously not as good as it could be. And so kind of life continued for a number of years, but with it gradually deteriorating. I think I had 14 operations, which most of them failed over that period. Virgin Atlantic were brilliant. They allowed me time off, and they allowed me, I don't know if I ever flew with you, but I had these special shoes that I could fly, both so I could feel the controls properly, and special. They gave me like those buggies for going through the airport, and Virgin were very good to me. And so I lived with it, and the further operations are a little bit down the line, but so I lived with it for a number of years until eventually we got to the stage where I couldn't walk properly. I was in constant pain. I was taking opiate-based painkillers, which meant I couldn't fly anymore. And I got to the stage where I couldn't walk, couldn't fly, couldn't work. Fortunately, Virgin was still paying me, which was fantastic. And so I had to make a very big decision, and that was to have an elective below knee amputation.
That you just say that so calmly, but that must have been an absolute. You knew it was going to be a life-changing decision.
Yes, I did. I'd done a lot of research, and I did know that a couple of guys flying around the world had done it and were able to come back for flying. Because, to be honest, that's why I'd left it so long, because I didn't want to stop flying. But eventually, I got to the stage where I didn't have one option. So I took a load of brave pills, and off we went to have it cut off.
What did your surgeon recommend?
Well, by this stage, I'd had some operations where I'd had medical negligence by another surgeon, and he'd left it in a really bad way. So by the time I'd got to the original surgeon who'd done the work, he'd said, Mike, there's pretty much nothing we can do. You've got about a 30% chance of it being successful, but I can't even say that, and if it did, they'd have to put one of those cages on it where you moved it by a millimetre a day, and I was going to be bedridden for 2 years with less than 50% chance of it being successful. Very difficult decision, and
Absolutely.
so I took the decision to have it done.
How did you go about making that decision?
Really, I did a lot of research online about what functionality would be like as an amputee. This is another funny story. I was going back to Virgin. I was in a B&B, and there was a little old lady in the corner. And you've got that decision: am I going to make conversation or am I not? And I was going back to Virgin after one of my many operations. She said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going back to Virgin, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "But my leg is in a mess and I'm not sure what to do about an amputation." And she said, "Oh, my grandson is bum-de-bum. And this guy had just returned to the Royal Marines, having lost his leg, and was the first Royal Marine to go back and complete full Royal Marine training as an amputee."
Oh, wow.
I went down to visit him at Lympstone, and that was one of the reasons I decided to make it go, because I thought if he can do that, I can certainly carry on with my life.
Wow, what an inspiration.
Yeah, so that's just one of those stories.
And that's completely
Yeah.
It was completely
Completely
by
out of the blue.
coincidence.
What's the chance of me and her being in the same room at the same time and even talking to each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, remarkable.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I got inspiration from him. I got encouragement from my family, and I had to have 2 psychiatric tests because obviously the doctors wanted to make sure you were completely.
Oh wow! Well, that would be a worry for most of us.
Exactly. Yeah, giving an airline pilot a psychiatric test. Exactly right. Yeah.
So you're absolutely sane now. We're sure
yes,
of that. Is that
well,
right?
I think to an extent anyway. Yeah. So yeah.
Excellent.
Also, one thing I didn't mention is there's a fabulous charity called Airability, which is on my jacket here somewhere, which its remit is to provide flying opportunities to disabled people, either as pilots or as passengers or anything else. I went to see them even before I'd had the amputation, so I still had 2 legs at that stage. Mike Miller-Smith, who's in charge of the charity, was very, very enthusiastic. Said they'd get me flying as soon as they could, but they also told me about a project that was coming up where they needed an amputee pilot. And so it meant that I could go into the operation and go into the weeks that followed in hospital with something to look forward to, which would be another part of the story.
And that must have been quite important to you because you knew you weren't necessarily going to leave flying behind.
Exactly, because there was no guarantee that I'd ever fly an airliner again, and so it was a huge incentive for me. Yeah.
And Airability, they play a part later on. I'm sure we'll come on to it. Yep. But so you've woken up from the operation, and what's it like when you look down and you've only got 1 foot?
It is surreal. It's absolutely surreal. And of course, you can still feel it. I mean, phantom limb pain is something we'll talk about later on, but even now I can still feel my toes. And I don't know if you remember when you fly in formation, we talk about easing out, relax, wiggle your toes, and I still do that when I'm flying, even to the toe that cuts it. Yeah. So it's a strange thing. Yeah.
Your recovery, how long did that take?
Oh, it was very quick. I was in hospital not long, I think 10 days. Came home, and the defining thing then was to wait for the residual limb, the stump. That obviously it's got a big wound on the bottom, so you've got to wait for that to heal. So that took about 6 weeks. In that time, they measure you up for leg and various bits and pieces. So you're waiting for it to heal and wait for the leg, which is and in a wheelchair, which is a really frustrating time. But that was only, I think, the operation was January the 6th. I was in the simulator by the start of March at Airability, and I think I flew the PA-28 a week later. So within something like 8 to 10 weeks of my amputation, I was flying again.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You've already mentioned that you were there as a project manager with Airability, with the aim of doing exactly what?
Well, the Douglas Bader Foundation, which was the charity set up by Sir Douglas Bader's family after he died, and I'm sure some of your audience will know Douglas Bader was a Second World War fighter pilot. He'd lost his legs in a flying accident in about 1933, double amputee, but at the outbreak of the Second World War, he was desperate to get back into the Royal Air Force, and through persistence and sheer bloody willpower, got back to fly for the RAF, flew Spitfires, led both a squadron and a wing, and became bit of a national treasure, fighter ace, was shot down. He was a POW, ended up in Colditz. So a remarkable figure and a real inspiration to disabled people throughout his life. Yeah, so Sir Douglas Bader's family decided they want to extend his legacy. They had the idea of starting the world's first all-disabled air display team. Never been done before. There's a team called We Fly, who are fantastic guys down in Italy, and they have a couple of guys who are paraplegics, but they fly in a 3-ship with another able-bodied person. So a fully disabled air display team had never been done before. So a bit like Cinderella, through our ability, we had a tryout for all the disabled pilots in the UK.
Wow, how many are there?
There's not that many. I think there were a few missing I've met since then, but I think there were about 20 to 25. There's not that many. It's quite a small sort of gene pool. We all tried out through to Western Flying Club. It's a great flying club, manned by BA captains who have all got
heaps of money.
Well, no, but fast jet backgrounds. Most of them Air Force. A lot of them were BBMF.
The BBMF is the Royal Air Force's Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, flying Lancaster, some Spitfires, Hurricanes, Dakota, and that sort of thing.
And so they gave up their time to come and assess us and then train us. And that was absolutely fabulous. So they came down, we all tried out, we did close formation in the PA-28s, and eventually they chose 3 of us to fly for the team. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen to lead it. So
brilliant.
That was fantastic.
Brilliant. So who were the other guys on your wing?
Okay, on my right wing was a guy called Alan Robinson, and he is another amputee who had a motorcycle crash, and Alan is an engineer in the Royal Air Force. Oh, right. He's a sergeant a flight sergeant on AWAC squadron at Waddington. Got a flying scholarship through Flying Scholarships for the Disabled, and did his PPL.
Is that another organisation?
That's another organisation.
Oh, right,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, there's a few organisations around there, and they all kind of mesh and fit in. So he got his PPL through them. He then went off and did some pretty wacky microlight flying. He flew up to the Arctic Circle in a microlight.
What?
Yeah, great films of them landing on skis in snow up in Sweden. Really remarkable. So he did that. And then with very little flying, he won another scholarship through Prince Harry's Endeavour Trust, and he was chosen to replicate World War II fighter pilot training. So they gave him, I think, 15 or 20 hours on a Chipmunk to do tailwheel training. I think he did 20 hours on a Harvard for complex aircraft, and then 20 hours on the Spitfire, which he soloed with Boltby Academy down at Goodwood. And he was the first amputee pilot since Sir Douglas Bader to solo the Spitfire.
Wow.
With about 150 hours. Just absolutely remarkable. So he was chosen, and he was number 2. And the guy on the other wing was a guy called Barry Hobkirk. And Barry had effectively broken his back in a helicopter accident. He was a Chinook pilot. And again, a remarkable guy, because he eventually became paraplegic and continued to fly in the Royal Air Force. But he was on the training squadron, and he did various jobs for about 7 or 8 years afterwards as a paraplegic.
Wow, he was still flying the Chinook?
Still flying the Chinook.
Good Lord.
Not many people know that story. So he's a remarkable guy. And he was the number 3. And so we were chosen. Over 2 years, we trained with Western Flying Club and eventually got our display authorisations. And we did a display season where I think we displayed at 6 or 8 airfields. And we were very proud. I can remember the first show was a bit of a day like this, and it was at Duxford, first display of the season. It was May, and the 25,000 people on the ground. We're holding to the north of the airfield. I think the blades were on, having done, and then we rolled in, and it was a perfect day, and the display all went well. And then we landed and got a standing ovation, and I've got to say, it's one of the best days of my life. It was a remarkable achievement. So, yeah, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and you certainly did take advantage of your new life, as it were.
Well, there's no doubt. I was just a very average pilot. There's no way that had I not lost my leg, I'd be ending up flying air displays. I mean, I have no doubts about that whatsoever. So, yeah, as one door closes, another one opens. Yeah. I'm also, I do motivational speaking for Blesma, which is the limbless veterans charity. and I meet all sorts of people that I would never have met if I'd remained, a bipod.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, those displays sort of wound down around 2019?
2019. Of course, COVID came in spring of 2020, and everything stopped. So we had kind of a year on the ground kicking our heels. I had quite a lot of time off because we haven't talked about that side of things. When I knew that my leg was in a pretty bad way, the writing was on the wall regarding whether I'd be able to continue flying or not. And so I went and got myself qualifications initially as a flying instructor, and then teaching something called MPL, which is the multi-pilot course.
You did this off your own bat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a company called CTC in those days. That's now called L3 Harris. But I went and paid for all my qualifications, built up my experience, became a type rating instructor on the A320, and then eventually a type rating examiner. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now. Cool. So that became a kind of a second career, which I could revert back to after my amputation. But of course that all stopped as well. So I had a year on the ground, basically, where there was not a lot to do.
We'll continue with Mike's story next week. The reason I wanted to talk to Mike wasn't just to hear the story of his amazing life, but because, as the leader of the world's first and only fully aerobatic amputee formation team, he needs your help. Any display team needs financial assistance, and Team Phoenix is no different, until you realize that they have had to overcome many hurdles that no other team faces. They're worthy of your help. Should you be in a position to assist Mike, then... So Mike, what's the best way people can get in touch with you if they want to help you out in this amazing journey of yours?
Okay, well, easy way is to call me on the telephone, +44 for the UK, 7973 762 301, or you can email me, mike@teamphoenixair.com, and also we have a website, Team Phoenix Air. Have a look at that, teamphoenixair.com, and have a look at that online, and all the contact details are there.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks.
Okay.
So inspirational that man is.
Absolutely, Jeff. That's. I mean, his story is just remarkable from start to finish, and also the stories of those around him. They really do inspire, and anyone who feels they have a disability needs to listen to this. To perhaps in those dark days when they feel that they can't achieve anything more in their life, they need to listen to this and realize that that's far from the case. If you have drive, enthusiasm, support from those around you who love you, and also from the many organizations that are out there, then almost anything is achievable. And Mike is, living proof of that.
Yeah, absolutely. My running coach, we'll go back to running for just a second, is very fond of quoting what the mind believes the body achieves. And sometimes you need a little help and support, but you have to believe it to get there.
Absolutely.
And Mr. IH Boxes has a good point here. He says, another example of if there's a will, there's a way for all you young aviators out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Puts in perspective, doesn't it? When, we talk about being laid off, this pandemic has caused all kinds of havoc for people's careers, but come on, I mean, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very easy to say, woe is me, but it's all about attitude.
We're going to wrap this up next week with the final part of the show. It's not going to be a very long one, but I'm still looking forward to it. And what's more, I'm going to meet Mike next week. We're going to have a curry together, and I look forward to chatting to him. He said, let's meet and have a chat without the microphones. So
it's very sensible.
Looking forward to that.
You seem to be doing those curries quite often recently.
Well, do you blame me with the Majaban fantastic Indian restaurant in my village?
I cannot blame you. That's excellent Indian cuisine.
Yes. Quite good. Very good.
And Micah, main man Micah, if there's a will, there's often a family argument.
Very true, Micah. Very true.
Oh, man. Yeah, I look forward to the next installment, the last one, sadly. But again, as Nick said, if you have the financial resources to support this cause, please check out the show notes and contribute. All right.
Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Liz. We're on the same wavelength. Yeah, it is scary. That means your mind is messed up. Okay, this is from Kelly, and we've been talking about this meetup in Fargo, North Dakota for quite some time. And guess what? It happened. And he told me to read this first before we play the video. Yes, he has a video. Greeting APG crew and community. The Fargo meetup was great fun. Good comradeship. Camaraderie? How do you pronounce that? Comradeship? Good. A lot of people like getting together and being good comrades. Fellowship. And great food. Yeah. Kelly, never use that word again because I can't pronounce it. I was really hoping for this to be a fly-in, but unfortunately, Mother Nature had other plans. Grand Forks had hard IMC all day, and at my airport, we had overcast at 800 feet with rain showers. I wish I had my camera ready because there was probably the most spectacular roll cloud to the west of Fargo I think I've ever seen. We had a great time, and I'm hoping to be able to do it again soon. Congrats on 500 episodes. Well, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. Such a great milestone. Only the best reach that level, so keep it up. Thank you. Included is the videos he took at the restaurant. Okay, and he said he's apologizing for the bad background noise. He said, but hey, I tried to clean it up, but it is a restaurant after all. Okay, good point. So we'll keep that in mind then when we listen. And if you're watching the video version of our show, watch Kelly and the the Fargo meetup. I'm trying to vamp here as I load this video. Here we go.
Hey there, Captain Jeff and crew. This is Kelly coming to you live from the Shack on Broadway with our APG Fargo meetup. I'm joined by my two very special brand new friends. I've got Keith and James. I'll go and let them introduce them and tell them about how we got involved with APG.
Hey, I'm Keith Griffin. I'm up from Grand Forks here. I go to the University of North Dakota. I got involved with APG. My first episode was the OSPLAS 2019 episode, and I've listened ever since, and it's been great. Congrats on 500, guys.
Hello, my name is James. I'm a full-time flight instructor up at UND. I've been listening since my freshman year, which was probably right around episode 300. Really helps to get a lot of insight through my time in college, so really enjoyed it. Congrats on that big 500.
And I've seen some feedback before talking about my flight training. I've been listening to APG since about the Farnborough episode, and I've been listening ever since. I have not gone back and listened to the whole catalog. But I'm glad at what you're doing now. Congratulations on 500 episodes. Thanks. Have a good day. Back to you, Captain Jeff.
All right, he threw it back to me. So well done there, Kelly. And thank you. Well done with that Fargo meetup. That is awesome that you took the initiative to get folks together up there in North Dakota. And hopefully, if you do it again, you'll have a bigger turnout. And hopefully, maybe I'll get to head on up there as well and join you all. That would have been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Sorry we
I
missed
think you
it.
should have invited the family that was right behind your phone to come and join you.
I hope one of them's okay. It sounded like one of them might have been choking on something. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, you should have gotten up and said, okay, hey, everybody in the restaurant, attention, please. Just shut up for a minute. I'm recording something very important.
I appreciate all the preliminary congratulations on 500 episodes. I guess they're just assuming that we'll make it for another couple weeks.
Yeah, it's a big assumption, but it's an assumption.
I'm hoping none of us drop dead before, because that might really put a marker on it.
It would. Yeah. It would really be sad, wouldn't it?
And I don't blame you for not going back and listening to all the episodes, but it sounds like none of them listened to the. I've seen the 200th episode. I would actually encourage that one.
No, I wouldn't look at that one. That was, it was quite something. That's for sure.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, if you want to see a grown man cry after having having consumed very large amounts of beer, then it's a good episode.
It's heartwarming. It's very touching.
It's heartwarming, yeah. Heartwarming, maybe. Anyway, number 4. Okay, Liz is telling me we should do number 4. And
4.
Why does it say for Rick?
Yeah, actually only part of it is for Rick, the second part. There are actually 2 components to this from Texas Charlie. And it's another one where I'm going to have to do the share video function here. And the title of this, Liz, is, okay, how many pilots does it take to screw in a light bulb? Here's the answer. Okay, I wish Rick were here to tell us what they're saying. I'm assuming this is Spanish. We're looking at a drone with a light bulb fixed to a cork. I'll turn this down since I think most of us don't really need to have that
Said it's not possible.
audio. And there's a drone approaching an empty socket in the ceiling with the screwed end, the base of the light bulb pointed upward. And it's getting closer and closer, and it's almost like air refueling, right, Nick?
Absolutely.
It's in the socket, and now
we don't twiddle around. We don't do aileron rolls once we've made contact, though.
Probably not a good idea. And look at that.
And we certainly don't set light to the fuel.
No, that's not good. Yeah, the light bulb is on just to prove that they got a good contact with that socket.
Very ingenious. How often do you have to change a light bulb? And it's some light fixture that's in a very inconveniently high
You know what?
place.
I hate to say it, but you can go out and buy for about $5 a long pole with a suction cap on the end.
It's not as fun
is
as
that?
Stick the
How else are you gonna make use of your drone that you got for Christmas?
You fly up to your neighbor's bedroom window, of course.
Fair enough.
Oh well.
Actually,
yes.
I want to see them change a battery on a smoke detector. That's
Oh, that would be quite something, wouldn't it, Steph?
Very good. Yes.
Well,
very useful.
so sure, we'll do that. But before we do that, Liz, I'd like to say the punchline, of course, or the answer to the question, how many pilots does it take to screw in a light bulb, is 1, but it has to be a drone pilot. There you go.
Neil came up with the same answer. He
Oh,
said
did he? Oh,
only
good.
one,
Well, Neil
but
is very smart.
He'll tell you he's a pilot first.
Yes, he will. Okay, I have to get something ready here. I'm going to do one more. The control room's telling me one more, number 8. And, okay, I think I have that ready. And let me go over here to this. And, okay, and you're ready, right, Liz? Okay, this is from Tim Van Ram. You ever heard of that guy? Anyway,
No.
Thought you would all like to see this Jeopardy category that popped up this week. I wonder how Rick would do on this game show, and would they play Ricketts? Kind regards, Tim Van Ram. Oh, look at that. The category is...
We're going green.
Going green.
We're going green.
We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green. Boom, boom, doo, doo.
I've gone green on occasions, but usually after
That's
I've
usually
drank too
after.
much.
I was gonna say after a couple of like egg rolls and I don't know.
After
yeah, alcohol will eventually do it.
Huey Jagermeister, Jagerbomb.
Yeah,
Jaeger
after
bombs.
a few-
Yeah, Jaeger bombs.
Yeah,
All
Huey
right.
Meisters.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up part 1 of our show, episode 493. We have some more great feedback, including some good audio feedback as well, up for you, ready to play for our next installment, which will be tomorrow if you're watching this live, Friday, the 15th of October, about 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. So if you can join us tomorrow, we'd really appreciate it.
That's only 8 o'clock here.
8 o'clock, yeah. So, hey, if you're available and you're not doing anything, Nick, head on over. And same thing for you.
You sure?
Steph, yeah. So
You'll
you'll probably be
home
working.
that quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
So y'all have fun without me.
Oh, I might be
We'll
able to
try.
make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, then we'll see you again tomorrow,
Cool.
Nick. Just you stay there. Don't move. Don't go anywhere.
Don't go to bed.
Because right now,
Nope.
just like a few seconds from now, we're going to be hearing the dulcet tones of Miami Rick.
Oh, you mean beautiful Dr. Steph's going to turn into Miami Rick?
I do not mean that.
The magic of podcasting.
And you just blew my entire transition to part 2. But that's okay. Editing, I can do it. I can fix it. Fix it in post.
In post.
All right. That is it. Man, I really wish that we had had a chance, Liz, to play the audio feedback from Lars. But we'll get to do that tomorrow. In fact, we were going to probably end up playing it close to twice because Lars talks about everybody on the crew. And so now we'll just play it once. So that's going to actually benefit our listeners, won't it? Okay. Very good. All right. So that's it. We're still broadcasting the video, but that's all you're going to hear on the audio only podcast for part 1. But I'm so happy that you all were able to join us. Gubby, I hope that you get some folks contacting you for the meetup. It looks like you're already going to have somebody contact you regarding your request for advice in simulators, PC simulators.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And good luck. It must be a hard life for an ex-helicopter pilot. I'm not quite sure why I said that, but
I don't know either.
I'm just
but
imagining.
Yeah.
Maybe he can
Yeah.
illuminate us.
Ex-Huey pilot.
Me too.
Liz says at least you didn't turn into a balloon pilot.
Good point. Yes, you see, there's a lot of similarity between balloons and helicopters. You know.
Did you
Both
pop?
Bloody,
Go ahead. Go.
Very dangerous. I was going to say.
Did you already pop this up from Larry Zoller?
I read that. I did laugh.
Larry Zola. Sorry, is it Larry? Do they have a pub in Fargo called the Wood Chipper?
One of my favorite scenes of a movie ever. Thank you.
And not gross at all.
Not gross.
I do remember I went to a bowling club in Australia to have a game, and they'd obviously had a sponsor who'd provided them with the mats that you stand on to bowl, and it was Chipper Funeral Company.
Ooh. Too soon.
And I was going, I'd rather be cremated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd consider maybe changing the name. I don't know.
It must be a family name, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we have any potential title ideas for at least the first 2/3 of the show so far? Not necessarily one that we're going to go with for the final until we do tomorrow's show, because Nick will be there with us as well tomorrow. So, he'll have some more material to work with. But
Absolutely.
Anybody have any suggestions? I'm sure we'll
that's
have
if
some.
Mrs. Anderson lets me, because she has to retreat to bed every time I go on
that's
the
true.
show.
That's true. Well, we're potentially have
Yes.
Nick with us tomorrow. Maybe the Wood Chipper Pub. That sounds like a good title to me.
The Wood Chipper Pub. Oh, yes. Yes, I like that.
Or Liz says something about maybe the jet getting stuck under the bridge.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
They're still talking about PC
50%.
simulators in the chat room.
That's a
Come
very
on,
important
attention.
subject.
Pay attention, people. I know. That's so true. This is like,
Micah only has one, and it's such incredibly bad taste he can't even say it.
oh, really? Okay. Yeah, Micah.
God would.
Keep it to yourself. It must be pretty bad if he can't say it.
Yeah. Micah usually will say what's on his mind.
Arrivederci, Alitalia. Well, that would be good if we were talking about Alitalia.
We didn't actually talk about Alitalia.
No. Got wood? Oh, Gubby.
Got wood in the Harrier.
Yeah. In the
Not a lot of
Harrier.
room in the Harrier, so let's hope it's not a big piece of wood.
That's not what she said.
I don't know. Nothing comes immediately to mind. I do like the Air India fuselage stuck under the bridge. That's entertaining.
That was entertaining.
I'm not sure where you go with it for a title, but
True.
Oh, yeah.
Liz giving some suggestions.
Liz is saying a potential artwork idea, if we went with the fuselage getting stuck underneath the footbridge, is putting all kinds of airline stickers or logos all over the fuselage and then crossing them out.
Not my airline. Not my airliner. Not responsible.
Not Air India.
I like that. Yeah.
That could be the title. Not Air India.
Not Air India. Not my responsibility.
No. I don't know who those people were, where they got that thing.
Weren't us.
Stuck Vindaloo.
I like it. I like it.
All right. Well, that's a potential idea. Thank you, everybody, for the suggestions, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow if your schedule allows. It'll be a couple of hours earlier than this episode today, and it should only be around an hour. So look forward to seeing you if you can be there, and if not, then we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yep.
And with that, take care, everybody.
Love to see you. Bye everybody.